Yeah.
Good evening. We're going to get started on time. I know
That's great.
I don't know about you, but my bedtime is getting earlier and earlier these days, so we want to get you out on time too. So thank you for coming out. This is kind of exciting for us. It's the first in-person evening program we've had since pre-COVID. Yeah. So I think we had to cancel our one in 2019. So this is nice to see faces and see you in person and not on a Zoom screen. So, and I think our college reps are saying the same thing. It's nice to see an audience. So let me introduce them, and I'm going to turn it over to them to talk a little bit about their colleges, and then we'll open it up to questions. So first we have Owen Grover, who's from Boston College. He's the Associate Director of Undergraduate Admissions there. Larry Thode from Dean College, and he's the Senior Assistant Director of Admissions. Then we have Douglas Seed from UMass Lowell, and he is the Senior Assistant Director of Admissions. And Eli Bieberman from Worcester Polytechnic Institute in Worcester, and he is an admissions counselor there. So, all right, and I took your microphone, so
No worries.
in there.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here tonight. My name's Owen Grover. I work at Boston College. I think, just so you have an idea of the format, we're all sort of going to go down the line here and just give a brief introduction about our schools, where we sort of fall in the landscape of all the different schools that you might be putting on your list out there, and then open it up for some good question and answer. So I'm happy to get started. Just to tell you a little bit about Boston College. I always start off by saying, Boston College is the state's biggest misnomer because we're not in Boston and we're a university. But we are located in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts, in the city of Newton. And it borders right along the city of Boston. And when I introduce Boston College, one of the ways that I like to do it is often around a theme. And one of my favorite themes that you see run through a lot of who we are at BC is the theme of balance. I think BC is a really balanced institution in a lot of different ways. One of the ways in which we're balanced is through our size. BC is a medium-sized school. In terms of all the colleges you could put on your list out there, we're going to fall pretty squarely in the middle with just over 9,000 undergraduates. So I like to say that allows us to take some of the best things from what those big schools do well and take some of the best things from what those small schools do well. And so on that large side of things, BC has Division I athletics. Our athletic teams compete in the ACC. So that's a lot of fun for our students. It brings a lot of school spirit to the atmosphere that many of our students like to engage with. Also on the large side of things, BC is an R1 or Tier 1 level research institution, which means the highest level of research that happens on college campuses is happening at Boston College. But on the small side of things, our student to faculty ratio is still just 11-1, which is really nice. So you still feel as though you're getting that really personalized and individualized educational experience. You're going to know your professors, they're going to know who you are, and you're going to have that really great rapport with them. So another way in which I think we offer a similar balance is through our location. One of the things that I love about BC is that being located just outside of the city of Boston, we have the space to spread out and have this really beautiful, traditional feeling college campus. There's a big gate around campus, there's a lot of green space there. It really sort of feels like what a lot of people picture a college campus to look like in their minds in that stereotypical sense when they first embark on the process. But at the same time, the city of Boston is still right there. And all the great advantages that you think of when you think of going to school in or near a big city, they're still right at your fingertips and so easily accessible for you. The last way in which I think we offer balance is through our academic structure. BC is a liberal arts school at heart. So you're going to get a really strong liberal arts education there with a really foundational core curriculum that you'll engage with. But at the same time, we still have really specific courses of study that you'll major in through our 4 different academic divisions, whether you apply to the College of Arts and Sciences, our business school in the Carroll School of Management, our School of Nursing, or our School of Education and Human Development. So the majors that you can choose to engage with, they allow you to really drill down into some great depth while still getting a strong liberal arts foundation. So I sort of like to center Boston College around this theme of balance because I think it helps people wrap their head around all the different options that they have out there and where different schools might fall in those spectrums that you're considering. But I'll turn it over to my colleague Larry now.
Thank you. My name's Larry Thode. I've been at Dean College since 1983, so it's been a little while. Back then we were Dean junior college. When I first started, there were 4 or 5 New England junior colleges, private 2-year colleges with housing, not affiliated with the state. Endicott was Endicott Junior. Bay Path is still all women's, but they were Bay Path Junior. Mitchell was Mitchell Junior in Connecticut. We went 4-year right around 2000. We have about 1,200 students full-time. 1,100 live on campus. We get kids from 35 different states, 10 foreign countries. A lot of people locally are somewhat surprised about that. We've always had housing, no forced triples. It's the train station to Boston, if you've been to Franklin, from our admissions office, it's less than a quarter mile away. So it's a big draw. I was telling my colleague from WPI that my territories when I travel are Western Mass and Greater Albany. And we do very well in the suburbs around Albany because they can jump on the thruway, Mass Pike, and they've got that train station, you know, if they want to come home, go to Boston, that kind of thing. Admissions-wise, we're a little more flexible in most schools. We're about a 2/3 acceptance rate. We're test optional, Common App, no application fee. We also give merit money to everybody that's an American citizen, permanent resident. Our full-time cost, round numbers, is about $61,000. Our average merit award's about 27, and it can be as much up to 31, particularly if the student's like 3.7 and above. So even a family that might not qualify for state or federal aid is going to get that. So we can come oftentimes fairly close to state school prices. Classes are capped at 30. Most classes are 18 to 22. We're Division III sports. Performing arts is big. Our two of our largest majors, number 1 is dance, number 3 is theater. Both of those have audition processes. Dance was our first major where we went to 4-year. We already had the 100, 200 level classes. And it was a plus in that there's a lot of schools that have dance as a minor, but not as many as a major. We also get some good adjunct faculty, people that are in the acting business that are in Providence or Boston, and they moonlight and teach a course because we're kind of halfway between those two cities. One of the other nice things for people involved in extracurricular activities, way back in the 1800s after the Civil War, it was Dean Academy, a traditional New England boarding prep school. Everything stopped at 3 o'clock. Sports were required. They're not required anymore, but about a third do play a sport. So one of the questions I get from parents is, being involved in a sport or extracurricular activities, will people have to do crazy things with their schedule? And this is what's really nice, is that practices start at 3:15. They're not flying across the country like a UCLA in the middle of the week to play a basketball game. So it's a really nice plus. We eat in the same cafeteria as the students. They don't have to sit with us if they don't want to, but it's another point of contact, which is a nice plus. One of the other things, and I know other people will comment about this, last week was school vacation week, and we had a lot of visitors, and a lot of you are just starting the process. Definitely visit schools. The right school for the one person might not be the right for the next, and you'll get a feel by visiting schools, especially if you start in your junior year in the summer before your senior year. Then you can go back and visit your top ones second, and for some people a third time, to get the best, make the best decision possible for you. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Doug. I'm a Senior Assistant Director of Admissions at UMass Lowell. I'm also a graduate of the school. Very happy to be invited to this panel. Thank you very much. This is my 11th year at UMass Lowell as a professional. It's been a place that's been so good to me, both personally and professionally. I met my wife there. We have a family. So it's a place I feel really, really strongly about. So when I talk about the school, it's not really from a place of just because I work there, but because I've lived it, experienced it, and it affects my day-to-day life every single day. I love UMass Lowell. We are a mid-sized public university. We have around 11,000 undergraduate students. UMass Lowell is a really unique campus. So if you are planning on visiting us, it's really unique in its setup in that it has 2 main academic campuses within the city of Lowell. So even though we're a mid-sized school, it feels a lot smaller than it actually is. We try to keep our class sizes small to the best of our ability. We average about 25 in a class. Just about half of our classes are less than 20 students as well. We have 135 majors across all disciplines, all accredited at the highest levels. And when you think about UMass Lowell, and public universities in general, it's really built around access and affordability. And I think we do an incredible job of providing opportunities to students from a complete cross-section of life in the United States and across the world. We have students from every state, 122 different countries, and it really is what the real world is like. So it does a great job of connecting students from all sorts of different walks of life and preparing them for the real world. We have always been an industry-focused campus, focused on producing students who are ready to hit the ground running, have real-world experience. To that end, we have world-class research opportunities, over 2,000 paid co-op or internship opportunities every single year for our students as well. So our return on investment is ranked very high in New England. Our students do really, really well when they graduate and get great jobs, which ultimately at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. You want to grow and learn as a person and experience all sorts of great stuff, but you're also training for a career. And our university does an incredible job of putting those students on that path and doing it in an affordable way, and so they don't carry a lot of debt and have great jobs when they graduate. We are Division I varsity athletics. We're in the America East Conference. Our track and field teams just won their back-to-back conference championships this year. We're really, really excited about that. The men's basketball team is incredible this year, 23-7. So a really, really great team. Excited to embark upon the conference tournament this year. And hockey is always great at UMass Lowell. So it's a school that I think anybody can go to for an affordable rate. It's really accessible, provides you incredible opportunities when you graduate. And you know, you hear it all the time. It's a place that students are really passionate about and really proud of, because when you think about the community of Lowell, which has changed a ton over the last 30 years, that's for sure. It's a place that is really carries an underdog mentality, and our student body really reflects that. It's a hardworking, blue-collar student body filled with students who just want to make the most of their opportunities and prove to the world that they are ready to hit the ground running. So I am happy to speak to UMass Lowell specifically. Obviously, it's where I work, but usually on these panels, I'm generally the only representative from a public university in Massachusetts, so I can do my best to try to answer any questions you have about the public system in Mass, both at the community college and university and UMass level, to the best of my ability. So feel free to throw any questions at me like that. Again, thanks for having me, and look forward to the questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I know I'm the last one to speak, so I'll try to be quick so we can get started tonight. But my name's Eli. I'm from Worcester Polytechnic Institute, or as you probably all well know it, WPI. We are a local STEM-focused institution, so science, technology, engineering, and math. If any of those sound very interesting to you, then WPI is definitely the right place for you. But beyond just STEM, we have a bustling computer science program. We have humanities and arts is actually our largest program in terms of how many faculty we have in it too. So at WPI, if you're interested in, let's say you're interested in biology, you don't just have to focus on biology. You could do biology and then also explore your passion for theater or music or philosophy, history, the arts, whatever you want to do. So you really get kind of that best of both worlds feeling where you can kind of get whatever you want out of your education. And at WPI, we have a saying, it's where theory meets practice, obviously with the WPI engineers. And what that really means is at WPI, you could be the best theoretical engineer ever, but if you can't build anything, you're not really an engineer. So we want to find where those two meet, and we want to help you build that. So we want you to be able to talk about things, be able to do things, but most importantly, we want you to be able to build things. Whatever it is you're looking to study, we want you to be able to build. So one of the best parts about WPI, in my opinion, is when you apply to the school, you don't have to apply to a specific program, you don't have to apply to a specific major, you'll put what you're interested in, but you can switch your major at any point in time. One of my favorite things that you're gonna hear that I do, you're gonna hear me talk about a million times, is I'm the supervisor for our student interns at WPI's Office of Admissions. I love telling their stories. One of my students, Susanna, she's fantastic. She has changed her major 5 times and is still graduating on time in 4 years. So if you don't know what you want to do right now, that's okay. But we have a lot of really great options, as well as we're a very project-focused institution. So our focus is getting you hands-on work and hands-on experience with whatever it is you want to do. So For example, we have a couple major projects built into your curriculum. Your IQP, your interactive qualifying project. That's one all of our students love to talk about. That is your junior year project. It's typically when it is. That's great because not only is it's hands-on, it's project-based. You don't take any classes while you're doing your IQP. So whatever it is you're doing, usually you're working with a local government, you're working with a company, whatever it is. The best part of that is you get to travel internationally with that, and that's built into your curriculum already. We actually offer to all of our undergraduate students a $5,000 scholarship. That's to help cover travel expenses. We want all students who want the opportunity to travel abroad to have that opportunity to go and do that. We don't want money to be the reason they don't get that opportunity. So it's a really great opportunity to get hands-on work, do projects that when it comes time, you're graduating, you have to apply to companies, you can point to them and say, hey, here's something I physically, tangibly did, that here's what I'm bringing to your company. Then the best part is your senior year, your MQP, your major qualifying project. That is whatever it is you're studying, you're going to do a project on it. You can do it with one of the faculty, you can do it with the company. Some people even travel for that one as well. Most students will stay on campus, but the major qualifying project is you get to work in whatever it is you're working on. So if you're mechanical engineering, you get to work with one of the great companies we have in Worcester, Massachusetts, and help them solve a problem they have or help find a new way of doing things. So it's a lot of really cool options. We actually have one of our students working in my office. He's working on Wall Street, so he's going to be in New York for half of his senior year, working with stocks and all that great things. So it's a lot of opportunity to physically do from the day you step on a campus, whatever it is you want to do. And that's really what we like to talk about at WPI. And I also love to highlight that we are ranked in the top 10 by both USA Today and Princeton Review in terms of career placement. So we want to get you ready for what comes next. Now, we have lots of great graduate school options, but some people will do their 4 years and then move on to the workforce. And you really have those opportunities to do so. But you really get to become what you want to be at WPI.
I was really derelict. I didn't introduce myself or my counseling staff that were here, so just take a pause. I'm Adelaide Greco. I'm the guidance director here. And maybe you guys can stand up. I've got Mike Flanagan over here. Okay. Ryan Waslick. Dee King. Kristen Worcester. And Cheryl Elder. Pat O'Brien is babysitting duty tonight, so he's not with us, but we're gonna open it up to questions now. If anyone has any, I have a ton of them written behind me, but I'd really rather they come from all of you.
Just takes one to open the dam.
Is the SAT or ACTs optional or still
Knew that was coming.
It's a great question.
Yeah, so I guess we can all sort of answer what that looks like at each of our institutions. So at Boston College, we just actually announced that we have continued our test optional policy for next year as well. So your juniors in the audience will have the choice as to whether or not you want to submit standardized test scores if you're applying to BC. I'm happy to give a little bit more context about what that means too, because I understand that there are a lot of questions out there and people say, you know, we know that you say you're test optional, but are you test optional or are you test optional? And what does it mean for me? And it's a fair question to ask. And at every school, you might get a little bit different answer. Now, people often think, well, if I don't have standardized test scores, I'm automatically going to be penalized or docked in the admission evaluation process. And that's not really the reality of it. How the reality works is that if you don't submit standardized test scores, what we'll do is essentially just remove that piece from the equation of how we're evaluating your application and put all the focus on all the things that you did submit. So I do say that while you won't be automatically penalized for not submitting standardized test scores, if you're not submitting them, hopefully you feel really good about those other things that you are submitting, because we're going to be spending even more time and putting even more focus on those things, particularly the courses that you've taken and enrolled in, the curriculum that you've chosen, the grades that you've gotten in those courses, and all the other things that you'll submit as well. Now, the flip side of it is, if you have standardized test scores and you want to submit them, you're more than welcome to. They can help your application, right? Just as anything else that you feel really good about that you're submitting can help your application. Just like a really fantastic essay or really incredible involvement can help your application. A really great standardized test score can help your application as well. So that's sort of one way to think of it when you think about what it means to be test optional at any given school.
Yeah, we've been test optional for about 4 or 5 years. Actually, until this year, we would use strong test scores in a borderline case to bump it up, but one of the vice presidents says that's not fair, so we don't look at them actually at all, even if people turn them in.
UMass Lowell was the first public university in Mass in 2015 to go test optional. It was really important to our director at the time to do that, and it's been something that's has continued to grow with momentum with us to the point where this year we had more test optional applicants than we had test submitting students. With UMass Lowell, there it is equal, right? There is no downside. Every major, including nursing, merit scholarship, honors college, all available as a test optional student. The review is a little bit different on our side, but to the student, the experience is really no different. If you take the any test, SAT, ACT, whatever it is, and you're not sure whether or not you should submit them, we do have some recommended minimums. They fluctuate year to year, but they're around like 1,100 or 22 ACT. But even if you're not sure if you should submit them, call us. I think it's important to know that there are human beings on like this side, on the other side of the application, and we want everybody to get it, everybody to get in. I want everybody to get in, get as much money as possible. So when somebody calls me and asks, this is my test score, this is what my GPA looks like, how do you think, what's my path of least resistance? I'm going to tell them, there are some instances where even a really solid, really strong SAT score, a student might benefit from not sending it. There are different situations where that could be the case. So I'm just going to put students in the best possible position I can, whether it's with or without tests. I think one thing, just kind of a blanket statement, understand if you take anything away from this evening, as every school does this a little bit differently. Even among like the UMass schools, even if we are all currently test optional, there are little tweaks and differences between the processes. So while I certainly represent UMass Lowell and across the board in the UMass system, it's pretty similar. I highly encourage you to reach out and have like a 5-minute conversation with whatever school that it is that you're interested in to find out those little details, those little timelines, all these little kind of differences that might perk up so you can tailor your application specifically to that school just to put your best foot forward. So, that's sort of my general thing I always put out at these panels. Everybody does it a little differently. Even though we're going to have similar answers, it's all a little bit different.
Yeah, definitely. And we are completely test blind at WPI. So what that means is you actually can't even submit your test scores to WPI. We've been doing that for about 4 or 5 years. That was a pilot program we started before the pandemic. We wanted to see what our student body, our classes would look like, how they would compare versus the students who had to submit them versus students who weren't even allowed to submit them. And they were statistically the exact same student. They were graduating at the same rate, same average grade. So we kind of came to a realization that we were kind of making something, mandating something that didn't change anything about our student body. So we're doing that for 4 or 5 years. So you can't submit them at all. Students will try to sneak them in on their application somewhere, usually writing their essay, and it's like,
Mention it in essay.
great, yeah. But yeah, we don't factor it into our process. Like that's not even something we consider, even if it is snuck in anywhere. So yeah, we don't consider it, absolutely.
All right, good night.
I don't want to keep taking it out on you. Can you talk about what a typical student profile of your applicants are, an average applicant?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the first questions people always ask is, what's your average GPA? And we actually don't provide one because I think it's often just such a misleading number because at every school it could be different, right? A 4.5 could be a great GPA at one school, and then you go to the school down the street, and it's not as good there, right? Because the scales are just a little bit different, things are weighted a little bit differently, and so we just don't calculate it in that way. We're really not even looking at a GPA. We're looking at grades and courses and your 4-year journey of the curriculum that you decide to enroll in and the courses that you decide to take, how you decide to challenge yourself, and how you performed in those courses. So I think a lot of times people don't necessarily put enough emphasis on the curriculum choices that you make. People just think like, oh, the grades that I got are great, and that's all that matters. They just look at the letter on there. But we're really looking at that 4-year journey from a holistic standpoint and understanding, how you performed over those 4 years in a variety of courses, because we think it's going to give us a pretty good indication of how you might perform in your classes over the next 4 years as well. So one of the biggest pieces of advice that I have for juniors is in your senior year course selection, make sure you don't take your foot off the gas. A lot of students will say, oh, well, I don't need to take these 2 subject areas in order to graduate. So I've already met those graduation requirements, so I'm not going to take those. And they just take the bare minimum in order to graduate. And I just think that you're sort of doing a disservice to yourself in terms of setting yourself up for success in college, because you want to make sure that you're on like an upward trend going into college, and that you are not taking it easy in your senior year to then have to ramp it back up when you get into your freshman year of college. So we really encourage applicants to stay enrolled in a rigorous curriculum all the way through their senior year. And so in terms of an academic standpoint, what we typically see for students is A minus students. It doesn't mean that students don't have B's or lower on their transcript. We admit students all the time with B's and lower on their transcript. But generally speaking, we typically see a solid A minus average for our students. And that's typically what we're looking at from a transcript perspective. Yep. Yeah. Great question. Yeah. So in an ideal world, and sort of, it's hard to say there's a one-size-fits-all model, because every student's a little bit different and might want to and need to take different things for their own journey. In sort of a simplified version, we say that we encourage you to stay enrolled in all 5 major academic subject areas for all 4 years of high school. So 4 years of language arts, 4 years of social studies, 4 years of math, 4 years of science, and 4 years of a foreign language. That's sort of an easy, simplified way to say it, but we understand that that might not necessarily make the most sense for everyone, right? There might be a student that says, I'm so interested in science, and there are these 2 science courses that I really want to take both of in my senior year. And so they say, maybe I won't be able to take a social science or a foreign language course because I'm taking 2 science courses. That's often okay, right? Because you are still enrolled in 5 core academic subject areas, and you're sort of replacing one course with a course of equal or greater rigor. And that's a choice that is certainly understandable. So we try not to make too many blanket statements, because we don't want to put pressure on students when they want to sort of realize their own individual academic journeys. But generally we say just sort of try not to take your foot off the gas by taking off subject areas just because you feel like you don't need to take them.
Our average GPA is about a 3.1. One of the big things that some of the public doesn't know is it's funny, each high school transcript is different states. I actually read some of Florida, they count weight training and gym, and so we recalculate grades, as I'm sure my colleagues will mention too. So we're not going to count that school's GPA if a kid had, say, a 3.5 counting weight training and these other things. We're going to throw those out and recalculate, and I'm sure they're going to talk a little bit about that too. So that's one thing that's a little bit different as far as that goes.
You took it right out of my mouth. So the short answer to the question is our average GPA is around a 3.7 GPA. So that's the typical student who's enrolling at the university. In general, we're looking for like a B plus average. That'll get you into the majority of the programs at the university. There are a few exceptions, things like our nursing program, computer science, a few of the engineering programs become a little bit more competitive. There's just a lot more people wanting to get into them than we have space available. So that just drives up sort of the competitive nature of the programs. A little bit of a longer answer kind of goes back to something I mentioned in my opening remarks, and public universities being built around access. An equal shot, whether you're from Phillips Exeter, Hopkinton High School, wherever. Doesn't matter. Lawrence High School, Lowell High School, everybody's supposed to have an equal shot of getting into the university. So all public universities in Massachusetts, the evaluation process is really more objective than it is subjective. We do all have to recalculate the state requires us to recalculate your high school grades. We're converting everybody to a weighted 4.0 scale. Some high schools are on a 7.0, 100 point, 5.0, all sorts of different stuff. So we have to bring everybody to to the same grade scale. The system takes into account what your high school does. We give a half a letter grade bump to any honors course that you take, a full letter grade bump to any AP or dual enrollment courses that you might have. So that weight is added into that recalculation. And then that grade point average that we derive is used for all of our decisions: admissions, honors college, merit scholarship, all of that good stuff. So it's not a secret. It's not something we're trying to hide from you. If you would like to know what that recalculation is, call us. We'll walk you through the entire process, tell you exactly how it worked, exactly what that recalculated GPA is. The good news is that we usually come out a couple tenths of a point higher than your high school GPA, because there are certain things we have to use, and then there are certain things we can use. Again, going back to what I said, we want to put everybody in the best possible position, so we usually come out a little higher than your high school GPA. So that's how our average profile, and that's how we then go through that process. So the main driving factor for admission at public universities in Mass, and in particular UMass Lowell, is your academic record, your 4-year snapshot of how you did academically. Things like your essay, letters of recommendation, resume, personal statements, all that stuff are more supporting documents for people who might be on sort of like the margins of admissibility. That's when those things come into play a lot heavier. But what really drives admission is your grades and how you've done academically. I think this kind of goes back to, like, every school does it a little differently. At the state university level, we all use the exact same recalculation process. So state universities and UMass system goes through the same process of recalculation. It's mandated by the state, so it's not something.
Just add something. Our GPA calculation, our weighted GPA, is very much tied to the UMass system.
Yep.
So we do I think it might be a little bit different in art and music classes, but even that's changing because now we have honors, studio art. And
If a school is on like a weighted 4.0 scale, it's going to be very, very similar what our recalculation comes out to. So it should be, like I said, and even in that, we'll usually come out just a tad higher, because we're going to put all the best electives in there, not. So, sorry, I don't want to step on
Oh,
it.
no. Do you have a question? Yeah.
I had a question. Since a lot of our students were one of the classes that suffered through the COVID, where they had to lock down and they were in school, how did the schools take that into account? So, like say they didn't do well whatever year, freshman or sophomore year, but they've done better ever since when they've been back in schools. How does that weigh in?
I was going to say, I can answer the question she asked and your question. I'll wrap them both together. But to start off with our typical student profile, I will tell you our average GPA is about a 3.9, so it usually averages out to about an A-, B+ type of student. But to echo everything everyone else, all my colleagues up here have said, it really is no average student in terms of, like, there is one on paper, but there is no actual average student. To answer your question, COVID definitely had an impact on students. We saw that in students' transcripts. It was blatantly obvious. It affected students in a lot of different ways. A lot of students wrote about it. So that's something we definitely take into consideration, where we see that you guys are current juniors. That would have been your freshman year, I believe, was like the height of the pandemic, where it might have been a mix of remote and in-person learning. It might have been all remote for some of you in the room. It looked a little bit differently for every person, but that's something we definitely take into consideration. In the holistic review we look at that. We see their trends. So maybe you had a rough time during that COVID year, but every year after that you got better each year. That's something we take into consideration as well. We don't want to punish students for something that's completely out of their control. What happened in the world and with their school was completely out of their control. And again, we don't want to punish students, but I will also say that at WPI, one thing we do require, which, since you guys are juniors, if you haven't taken it yet, please take it senior year if you'd like to apply to WPI, is we require pre-calculus. Being at WPI, being a STEM-focused institution, The lowest level of calculus we offer is Calc 1. So please take pre-calculus. You can be accepted to WPI without pre-calculus. It doesn't happen as often. We have to do what's called a conditional admit. You have to take some form of pre-calculus before you are accepted to WPI. So basically what a conditional admit means is we would accept you on the condition that you complete pre-calculus. We actually offer it on campus at WPI. It's completely virtual, so you can do it from home, but it's with our own WPI faculty. So you'll take pre-calculus the summer before you get there, before the fall of your first year. And then if you pass, you need at least an 80 in the course. And if you get that 80, you'll start fall with everyone else and you'll be on the same track as everyone else. You won't be behind anyone. You'll just have an additional pre-calc class. But we also at WPI weight collaboration a little bit more than other institutions because we are a project-based institution. So from the day you step onto campus, from the time you have your first class, you're going to be working with others, whether it's faculty, other students, whether it's the companies you work for with your projects. You're going to be working with people. So we like to see evidence of collaboration on your transcripts. So anything from your activities, you're doing activities where you're working with other people. Maybe it's in clubs, sports, maybe it's a job where you work with a team. Maybe you're in the scouts, whatever it is you do. As well as we like to see in your recommendations evidence that the students works well in the classroom environment. So your teacher will say, little Timmy loves to work with others, he's great in a group. Or sometimes we will get students where the recommender says, this person struggles working with others, and we even get the occasional essay where it's somebody talking about how they love to be a lone wolf in the classroom environment. And at WPI, that's not really something that works well with our philosophy of education. So that's something we can take into consideration as well.
From a pandemic perspective, the Common Application actually added a section last year called the Community Disruption section, and it's designed to allow students to explain exactly how they might have been affected by the pandemic and how that disrupted their academic journey. And so use that space. We'd really encourage you to do that. It's there for a reason, and it gives you an opportunity to really help us understand why things look the way they do on your application. What you described for a student is actually what's called an upward trend in college admissions, and that's something that we really like to see. Maybe a student had a little bit tough time adjusting to high school. It took them a semester or so to get their feet underneath them, and then they got better and better and really improved over the course of their 4 years. I like to see that a lot more than the inverse, which is a downward trend, and seeing students that knocked it out of the park the first 2 years, and then maybe they said, wow, I did so well my first 2 years, I can let up a little bit and still be in a fine spot, and then they're trending downward. We don't want a student that's headed in this direction, because a lot of times we feel like they're gonna keep going that direction, but a student that's on the rise is a student that we're often really excited about. Yeah, absolutely. So the question was about, considering an upward trend from a grade standpoint, do we also consider an upward trend from a rigor and curriculum standpoint? And that's absolutely something that we consider. We understand that transition to high school might be a time in that first year where you need to sort of just get your bearings and decide what type of curriculum is the best fit for you. And if you increase that over your time, that's definitely something that's encouraging to see. So it's certainly something that we take into account.
I think when making those types of decisions as you go through the process, it's really about finding the right balance between success in the classroom and the rigor. Certainly you want to take advantage of the curriculum that's offered at the school that you're going to. But how does it help you if you are getting C's in that AP course? You know what I'm saying? If you really load yourself with APs because you want to look good on a transcript, but you don't perform really well in those classes, that's not really helping you in the long run. So I think finding the balance and striking that balance between success in the classroom and pushing yourself academically is really that tightrope you have to walk, and work with your guidance staff to help figure that out. Talk with your family, and figure out what works for you and how you can perform the best and get the most out of what your school's offering.
Looks like there's,
Yeah, great question. So, yes, basically because pre-calc looks differently at every school. Like, for example, I read from Kentucky. I just read an application this morning where pre-calc was called trigonometry. So every school does a little bit differently. So we just want to make sure that you have the skills in pre-calc covered in coursework. So if Algebra 2 is covers everything in pre-calc, then you're all set. As long as you have the foundation ready for calculus is how we like to describe it to students.
Add to that. We send out a high school profile with all the college applications, and also it's available on our website for colleges to look at. And in that profile, we will be explaining moving forward that our accelerated program takes 4 years of math into 3 years, and pre-calculus is included in the accelerated program without exactly being in the title. So that's how colleges will all know. I have a question that's coming from guidance, if you don't mind my asking. Wondering about any advice you have for kids about choosing a major. How does applying as an undecided major affect them? And maybe what majors are you seeing on the rise and are the most competitive at your college?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk a little bit about that. So at Boston College specifically, you don't have to have your specific major picked out. You actually don't have to declare your major until the end of your sophomore year. So you have a lot of time to explore, try out different subject areas, change your mind a couple times. But when you apply, we do just ask that you apply to one of our 4 undergraduate colleges or divisions. You do need to indicate that on the application. So either arts and sciences, management, nursing, or education. Once you're admitted to that school, you're admitted directly to it. You can change your mind within it as much as you want. If you're in arts and sciences, you could start as undecided and then switch to biology and then switch to music and then end up as political science. Or if you're admitted to the Carroll School of Management, you could start off as an accounting major and then switch to marketing and end up as a finance major. You don't need to know exactly what you want to study, but you do just need to know sort of what general direction you might be interested in pursuing as a major. There even is opportunity to switch between some schools. You can pick up majors and minors across schools, but there are some limitations to that. So for example, if you are really interested in the School of Management or the School of Nursing at BC, we really encourage you to apply directly to that school just because there are a smaller number of seats available in those programs. So we're not necessarily able to guarantee that if you started in a different program and wanted to switch into management or nursing, that we'd have a seat available for that every time. But there are minors for that reason as well. We have a lot of students in arts and sciences or education picking up a minor in the School of Management, no problem. Generally speaking, though, we see the acceptance rate across all 4 schools being very similar to one another. A lot of people think that some might be more competitive than the other, but generally speaking, the type of student that we're looking for looks extremely similar across all 4 divisions.
Yeah, we're pretty much the same, except for the dance and the theater. The audition process obviously is fairly rigorous. So, but talking, kind of switching gears a little, eons ago, another lifetime ago, I had a grad fellowship at Springfield College before I was a dean, and allied health majors, physical therapy, physician's assistant, athletic training. We rated, and I'm sure nursing too, a lot of schools, it's a different criteria. And also, like I know with physical therapy, you can't take, it isn't like a psych major, you can't take 10 extra people because you've got the different clinicals and that kind of thing. That in areas like that, anatomy and physiology was a huge thing that if a student didn't take that or didn't do well, it could mean the difference between getting in or not, and I'm sure some of my other colleagues could comment on that.
Yeah, so at UMass Lowell, we have 5 main academic colleges: engineering, sciences, management, the humanities, as well as health sciences. So across those, we have 135 majors. On your application, we ask you to put a first choice and a second choice. So you do have to identify some specific majors that you're interested in. Now, each one of those academic colleges do have an undeclared option. So if you know you want to be an engineer, but you're not sure exactly what type of engineer you want to be, you can be an undeclared engineer. You're still in the engineering school, taking all the same classes that a first-year engineering student would take, but you have the option to explore a little bit, find out what the earning potential is of a chemical engineer versus a plastics engineer, or what have you. So, changing majors is pretty typical. I mean, you're 17, 18 years old, asking to make like a lifelong decision or such an impactful decision is a pretty daunting ask. So about half of our students change their major at least once. It's our job to help put you on whatever path it is that you want to complete with. We work really hard to get students in and out as efficiently as possible. Believe it or not, we don't want students sticking around for a long time. It accumulates debt, it accumulates bad feelings, so you don't want people to get their degree and get out into the workforce. So we try to, through our advising model, which is a professional academic advising model at UMass Lowell, meaning they're full-time staff members whose job it is to professionally, to academically advise you. They're not faculty members. Those are the people you work with to plan out the roadmap to whatever it is that you want to accomplish. If it is changing your major, they'll help you work through that process and find out what the right program is for you. So there are the undeclared is totally fine. However you'd like to apply to UMass Lowell, we have no preference. It's whatever you'd like. As you alluded to, nursing, and you'll probably find this out, nursing sort of plays by its own rules as a degree program because there's a lot of outside pressures that determine the size of the class, student-to-teacher ratio, all sorts of different things that require us to keep a program small. Our program's a little bigger. It's about 120 spots for freshmen every year. But still, it's our highest apply. It's in terms of acceptance rate, we get the most apps for the least amount of seats. It's about a 35% acceptance rate for nursing. For programs we've seen really explode recently, computer science is the one that really stands out to me over the last 3 years or so. We have seen an exponential increase in applications for computer science. Outside of nursing, what really drives the competitive nature of a program is the timing of your application. Believe it or not, the earlier you apply to something like computer science or mechanical engineering, or this brand new program we just introduced this past year called engineering physics, which we've seen this gigantic influx of applications, really unexpected. The earlier you apply to those programs, the more accessible they are. So if you apply during our early action timeline, which is in the November to January timeline, it's much more accessible than if you wait till regular decision because it fills up, and it just becomes ultra competitive if you wait to apply. So that's really what drives competitive nature of our programs here is timing of your application. So in general, I would always recommend you apply early action to whatever school that it is you're interested in. Outside of schools that you may identify for like early decision, which is like the binding contract situation, early action's non-binding. It cannot hurt you in any way to apply early action to any school. It can only help you. So I would not wait to apply to schools you're interested in if they offer early action as a general rule of thumb. Hope that answered the question.
Definitely, and I would echo what he just said. Always apply earlier. It is only to your benefit. Not only do you get to know your answer sooner, so you have more time to, if you get accepted, take some time to think about all your acceptances, but generally schools will have a higher acceptance rate the first round. So it's always to your benefit, early action. But in terms of majors, at WPI, like I said, you don't apply to specific majors, specific programs. You'll put what you're interested in, because we just like to see it for data purposes, but you're not bound to that by any stretch. You could say you want to do mechanical engineering, then show up day one and switch to business. It's really up to you on what you want to do with that. Get a lot of flexibility with that. What we'll see is what students will do is come their first. So we do a term system. So instead of 2 semesters, we do 4 terms. Each are about 7 weeks. So normally we'll see the first 2 terms are what we like to call exploratory. We'll see students take a lot of exploratory courses. For example, the student who puts that they're undecided but know they want to be in engineering, the undecided engineers, will take a couple different engineering courses and kind of pick which one they want to focus on and then take off with that one. Or maybe you like life sciences, then you'll take a couple different life sciences courses and really take off from there. And then I'll also echo that computer science has absolutely boomed for us in the past year, as it is across the country and really across the world. It went from like our 7th biggest program like 6 years ago to now it's by sizably the largest program, to the point where I would venture that if I asked for volunteers, I'd probably several computer science majors in this room. But we've definitely seen a boom in that as well. Also, business is something that's boomed for us as well in our humanities and arts, that we really want to emphasize more than just, I know we're the WPI engineers, that's our nickname, but we want to emphasize more than just an engineer. We want to develop a whole person. So we've really seen a boom in our humanities and arts too. The amount of applications we've read this year where it's, I love biology, but also theater is my passion, and I don't want to have to give one up. So that's why I want to come to WPI. So you really get options to explore. And I mentioned earlier, one of my student workers who changed their major 5 times. It's super easy to change your major. It's literally just a button on our website you click on your portal once you're enrolled as a student. So we really want to give students the flexibility, while also not making students stay for extra years beyond just their 4 years. So you get options to take courses. You'll have your advisor to be able to help you through that process as well. So if you want to change, they'll be able to talk to you about what course you need to take, what you need to do to make sure you're on track to still graduate when you want to graduate as well. So if you don't know what you want to study right now, you're undecided between a couple things, you're totally fine. Don't freak out about it right now. You guys are 16, 17 years old. Take a deep breath, enjoy high school, focus hard, work hard in your classes, and then when senior year rolls around, really buckle down on those applications and stay buckled down in your classes as well, and you'll do fine. Yeah, that's a really good question. The short answer to that question is no. Every school does it a little bit differently. Like, we have 4 very different size schools and the way we do things. But every school is different. Like, some schools, it might be a little different because if you're at a school with different programs, maybe you have to apply into that other program before you can just change. But I can speak for WPI, and I know that we make it as flexible as possible to be able to change and switch majors, programs, interest paths.
Yeah, the question was about changing your major. Do all schools have that kind of flexibility? I think you'd be hard pressed to find a school that's going to say, no, you started as an accounting major, you will finish as an accounting major. I think schools want you to be able to pursue what the path that you're meant to pursue. There can be some limitations. You know, at BC, for example, you might need to stay within your specific school, or the timing. If you're looking to change in the middle of your junior year, logistically, you might just not have enough credits in order to finish that. So there can be some limitations, but generally speaking, a school is going to do everything they can within their structure to allow you to pursue what you're interested in. No. Yeah, the question was about job market preparation. How do we all prepare our students for that? You know, at most colleges, they have a dedicated career center on their campus with a whole staff that their job is to help students get internships and jobs after they graduate. So for a lot of students, that internship process is pretty big, and it's sort of the stepping stone to the job process, because a lot of times students might find an internship that they complete the summer after their junior year, or even their sophomore year, that extends them a full-time offer after they graduate. They say, you know, go back, finish your senior year, but know that you have a job waiting for you after you graduate. And so the work really starts pretty early on, and that's not to put pressure on students, but it's just to say, you know, there are some small steps that you can take pretty early on in college, some light lifting things to really set yourself up for success after you graduate. So we really encourage our students to check in with our career services pretty early on in the process. Again, not to put any pressure on them, but just to make sure that, you know, when an opportunity comes their way, they're prepared to pursue it. And so we have a really great staff on campus that help students with that. We have some great resources. You know, we have career fairs all the time with employers coming to interview our students. I talked to one of our student tour guides the other day that said he just got an internship at you know, a big consulting firm, and he didn't even leave campus to get it because they knew they wanted to hire BC students for interns, and so they came and they did 2 rounds of interviews on campus. And we see things like that happen a lot, and our career services are really great at facilitating those things. We also have some great technological platforms. We have a platform that is basically like a LinkedIn that's specific for BC students and BC alumni. So it's called Eagle Exchange. So if there are employers out there with BC alums that know they want to hire more BC students, they can post an exclusive job listing on this platform and know that only BC students are going to have access to it. And it allows the job search to be pretty targeted in a way, which we find really helps our students.
I think most colleges now require an internship. Even 10 years ago, and way back when I was in college, hardly anybody did it. But my oldest granddaughter goes to UNH, and she just is finishing her master's in social work, and she just signed a contract where she's doing her internship for social work with a master's. She's starting at $62,000, which is pretty high, and she'll graduate in a couple months, and a week later and it's because of that internship, and she likes it there. They liked her, and I think all different fields, whether it's computer science, business, she's in social work. I think that's a huge thing. Even if somebody doesn't get offered a job where they did their internship, if people like them, they're going to give them great recommendations, and that's going to give them a leg up on the field that they want to go into.
I think the question comes down to, ask the individual schools that may be on your child's list, what type of opportunities are offered, how many students are taking advantage of those opportunities, where are they going, what type of companies are they working with. At UMass Lowell, our employment rates are very high, about 96% employed or in grad school within a year of graduation. Highest average starting salaries out of any public school in New England, highest average mid-career salaries out of any public school in New England. So our students do well because, we started back like in the late 1800s to support the textile industry in Lowell, Mass, right? So the school has always been there to support industry, and as I mentioned at the beginning, to have students graduate ready to go, hit the ground running. So we encourage our students. We have co-ops, internships, practicum experiences, clinical rotations. So there is an experiential learning opportunity or two for every single major that we offer at the university. It's really important to us. Now, it is not a required part of the education. You are absolutely crazy if you do not take advantage of that opportunity, because gone are the days where you can just have your degree in like retail work on your resume and you're going to find like a real job when you start. So when you graduate, so you really have to make sure that you're taking advantage of those opportunities, however they present themselves. We're really lucky that we got a really massive donation last year to ensure that every single opportunity is also a paid experience. Traditionally, internship opportunities are hit or miss with whether or not their students are compensated. Co-ops, which are full-time jobs at companies over the summer, are usually paid, but internships may not be. But the university is committed to making sure those students are compensated. Nobody should ever work for free, so those students are being compensated for their time and effort. Similarly, we do very large-scale job fairs. For the first time, I worked at one in the spring. There was about 250 companies came to the university at our Songus Arena, which is like an 8,000-person arena. About 2,000 students came and took advantage of those opportunities to interview on the spot. I know firsthand students walked away with job offers. We do networking events, resume building seminars, professionalism seminars, like teaching students how to be professional, how to dress professional, little things that we as adults we take for granted that young folks may not know. So we work hard to give our students the tools to be ready when they graduate. So it's a priority. It helps the university to have those students out there being successful.
Ditto to everything that was said
Sorry,
before.
he's like-
You're so
he's on
fine.
the- he's at the
I'm at
end
the
now.
end, so I get all the answers taken. But the only other thing I'll add is that when you're at college, and this is pretty universal, pretty much whatever college or university you attend, that the faculty you work with, your professors, a lot of them are currently professionals in whatever field they are or have been professionals for years. So they're fantastic resources because they've lived the lives that you want to live, and now they're coming back to teach about that industry. For example, if any of you are currently taking or plan on taking AP Chemistry, The textbook you're going to use for that class was actually written by a current WPI faculty member. So a lot of your faculty will have connections in the industry, so even if they're not specifically going to hire you, they can set you up with whether it's an interview with a company, or maybe it's just more of an informational interview where it's more, here's what our company does, so you get that hands-on experience with interviews. And faculty are always more than willing to help students as well, to sit down, talk with them, talk to them about the industry, what it's like, what they can expect, as well as tips and tricks of ways they can get into the industry as well. But we also have a great career development center at WPI. Like I said earlier, we are top 10 in USA Today as well as Princeton Review in terms of career placement for our students. So our students do quite well. Actually, one of my student workers, he's leaving right after the spring semester ends, literally like the day after. He got a job out in San Francisco, an internship for the summer. It's a 3-month internship. They're paying for his flight, his apartment, and he gets all his meals paid for as well. So he's doing pretty well for himself for a junior in college. So got lots of opportunities both in college, and then once you're out of college, you'll have a lot of opportunity to be prepared for that.
We're going to go in the opposite direction again. I appreciate you talking about career services, resources for career services. Can you also talk about resources for the academic piece and the counseling piece? What do they look like at your campus, and then how will the students access them?
Eli, I'll take that.
I was about to get up and go over there. Fantastic. So in terms of resources, basically when you jump onto campus for your summer orientation, you're going to be surrounded by more resources than what you're going to know what to do with. So you have academic advisor. So everyone on WPI's campus, all our undergraduate students are assigned an academic advisor from the day they step onto campus. That is somebody who works with you specifically one-on-one to talk about courses, what your 4-year plan is going to look like. They'll talk to you about your projects. So I talked about 2 of the major projects involved in your curriculum, how that's going to work, and be able to give you advice, talk you through that, as well as pretty much anything academic related, as well as they do, we have our academic support services as well. So if you, for example, you're on an IEP in high school, on individualized education plan, then you'll send whatever information, whatever resources you have for IEP, you'll send that to our academic support center. And they'll work with you to be able to work with a plan that works at WPI. I always tell students it's not guaranteed that it's going to be 1-to-1, 100% what it was in high school, but we're going to work to kind of give you the best we can to be able to work with you so you're academically available. But also in terms of just more like beyond just the academic classroom, obviously college is a full experience. Especially if you're living on campus. I know here in Hopkinton, if you'd like to commute to WPI, you're welcome to, but if you want to live on campus and get that full experience in your dorms, we have the resident advisor, or RA, as you probably know them better as. That's a current student living on campus, and your first year you will be meeting with them, and they're just talking to you about transitioning to college, everything from the social aspect of it, how are you finding meeting new people, and how are you finding going to different events, as well as the academic portion. You know, advisors are great, but being able to talk to a current student who's gone through very recently what you're currently going through as a first-year student, we have those available to you as well. We also have our peer tutor center on campus, which is a really great opportunity to just go and get time to talk with a current student who's taken that class before. So that's completely free to students. That's located in our library. So whenever you want to do that, you can just go use that services. You can set up weekly appointments. You can, maybe there's a specific topic you want to cover, you can set up appointments with them as well. So you have a lot of different flexibility, as well as I always encourage students that if you don't get something or you need help, go talk to the professor. I love hearing stories. One of my favorite stories to tell is one of our current students. He's a robotics engineering major. He loves to tell the story of, it was his sophomore year. Him and his group were working on a project. They were working on a piece of code for a project they were working on, and they were completely stuck, had no clue what to do. So they emailed not even their professor. It was like 11 o'clock on a Thursday night. They emailed not even their professor, just another professor in the robotics department. And that professor actually got on his bike, ordered a bunch of pizzas, and came down to WPI's campus, and they sat eating pizza and going over the code late on a Thursday night, just a random Thursday in the middle of the term. So I always encourage students to talk to the professors as well, because again, they are experts in their field. A lot of them have been working in their field for years and years and years, so they really know what they're talking about. So it's a lot easier to hear it from them, but maybe you're confused by the way you professor, you can also go to the tutoring center. So you're surrounded by resources all 4 years. It's really up to you what you want to take advantage of, because again, they're all free, but you can go take advantage of what you want to take advantage of.
I think, a pretty similar experience. At UMass Lowell, your advising model is, as I mentioned earlier, professional academic advising model. A lot of schools will assign you to faculty members for advising, where they're great, they work in their fields, incredibly knowledgeable, but they have a teaching schedule, research schedule, limited office hours, that kind of thing. So they're not super accessible. UMass Lowell, their staff members work every single day to work with students to plan out that roadmap for where they want to go at a major, double major, minor, whatever it is, plan it out and get them to where they want to be. So we call those college-based advisors, and you meet those at your orientation over the summer. You get to start talking with them, and they're incredible people. On campus, we have our Centers for Learning, which is our general academic support office on campus. So I mentioned we have a couple main campuses in Lowell. There's a location on each of those main academic campuses, as well as the residential campus. So you're never more than just a couple minutes away from taking advantage of all of the different services they offer. Tutoring, peer tutoring for over 100 courses, writing support, for whatever type of writing assignment you have, whether it's a research paper, lab report, whatever it might be. They will support you. You can use it as often as you want, from brainstorming through editing, revising, and submission of every single paper that you have. They'll do time management workshops and goal-setting seminars and all that good stuff too. We have our Center of Student Disability Services. So if, similarly, if you have an IEP or a 504, or let's say you break your leg or something in your sophomore year and you need some sort of physical accommodation, you work with that office to set up whatever it is that you need so you can be successful. Almost all of our lectures are recorded for students to then revisit same day in the evening. So they can, as they're doing their homework or whatever it may be, can revisit that lecture and go through that coursework again. We have a high first-generation college-going population at UMass Lowell. So for students who identify as first-gen college students, meaning their immediate family has not gone to a four-year university in the United States, we offer those students something called the Riverhawk Scholars Academy. And it's a chance for students to be supported socially, emotionally, academically with the transition to college. It is hard enough for somebody who has parents or has resources at home to transition to college, but especially that much harder for somebody who might be doing it for the first time in their family. So it's been a program that has mentorship, it has special academic advising, different programs that are available to students, and it has been incredibly successful. There are scholarship opportunities, specific study abroad opportunities as well. The students who really engage with that program have a higher average GPA than the general student body at UMass Lowell, have a higher retention rate. So they return for their second year, which ultimately means you're going to persist to graduate. So those students do exceedingly well. We also offer our first-year students, and like you said, you're going to get so many resources thrown at you when you start at a university, like you're going to be surrounded by it. It's going to be overload. But first-year students have the opportunity to live in what's called living learning communities, where your roommate, your floor mates will all be of the same academic major, so you can more easily form study groups. There's special academic, faculty programming. In some cases, live-in faculty will live in the residence hall as well. So you can more easily transition into your degree, have something in common already with a roommate through your common major, where you can create a relationship not of nothing, like you have something in common already. So there's all sorts of different resource opportunities for incoming students.
Yeah, Dean, probably different than many colleges, about 30% of our students have a documented learning challenge, and we have a fee-based program called ARCH. We get a lot of cross applications with Curry. People from out of state will visit one in the morning, one in the afternoon, makes sense. And a key part to this is we get a lot of recently retired public school teachers say they got into it at 22, they retired 52. They want to do something, but they don't want the constraints of a 40-hour work week. They tutor 5 to 10 hours a week, one-to-one. They're not on the computer. They're not on the phone. That's a key part of the program. We do individual stats, and the students in that program the first year at a 3.2 versus roughly a 3.0 for the general student population. The other thing we do that's a little bit different, there's a thing called FERPA, Federal Education Right to Privacy Act. I'm old enough, my parents got my grades. but my brother and sister were just beyond that, and most schools now follow FERPA to the letter of the law. The grades, well, they used to go snail mail, now they're on the computer, but we do mid-semester and final grades for all students. Our president, they tell families during orientation, or new student orientation, if you want to get the grades, have the kids sign the waiver. And we find that that works really well. For a few years, I did academic advising at our school. I had communications in the phys ed recreation areas. And I found some of my kids actually, especially freshman English, where there was, say, a series of short essays, they thought they were worse than they really were. So we do that for all students at mid-semester. They don't go on a permanent record because they just reflect half a semester's worth of work. But we find that that's really a good plus, because if one or two courses are a little bit down, there's 6-7 weeks to fix it, so to speak. But one quick story about my brother is in Florida. His ears are probably burning right now, but 2 days before he was supposed to graduate, my parents got a phone call. Nada, not going to happen. He had done just poorly enough that he was at a 1.97, give or take. And colleges don't round off. You've got to have at least a minimum to graduate. And he was smart enough to know, with 120 credits, if you take one 3-credit class and get a C plus and might not bump it up. So they didn't kick him out. He was in like a purgatory. So he took 6 credits, did well. You know, he admits now he slept to noon, keg parties. He got kicked out of the dorms. I remember seeing the incident report on my parents' coffee table. Yeah, things not to do. Yeah. But so that's one of the things, maintain good communications with your students about that. So we do that, and that's a nice plus. And like I said, when I did academic advising, I found it helpful. Some kids thought they were actually doing worse, because as you know, on a syllabus, you know, something might be worth 30% or 40% or 10%. Sometimes they misjudged the wrong way. So.
The last thing I'll add in the same vein is that over the last couple of years, we've placed a considerable increased focus on mental health resources on campus as well. We know that particularly in the wake of the pandemic, you know, students' mental well-being is you know, almost equally as important to their success academically as, you know, academic advisement and academic preparation. So I think at a lot of colleges, you'll see a lot of focus on that as well to ensure student success.
Can you just comment on the college essay in some capacity? Like, I don't have a specific question necessarily, but the topic that comes up a lot in our offices is just, what do I write about? What do I not write about? And we try to give general advice and statement, but obviously you're the ones reading them, so it'd be awesome to just hear some thoughts.
Yeah, so the question was about the college essay. Happy to talk about this. This, I think, will be a lot more fun to talk about than some of the more logistical things when it comes to this process. So let's see, how many people here have used ChatGPT before? No. All right. My wife is an English teacher at this school, so I'll take names after. Kidding. But I think that the essay is a really wonderful opportunity for you to use your own voice in this process. It's really your only opportunity to use your own voice, right? Because most of what you submit through the application process, in a way, a lot of it is done for you, right? Your transcript is a form that you're submitting. The resume that you fill out is even sort of more or less the same format that everyone's filling in. And so the college essay is almost your opportunity to speak for yourself in this process. And we've heard a lot about ChatGPT out there and students, you know, potentially using it for essays, for college essays and things like that. And it'll write a fine essay for you. Well, but it's not going to write one of those essays that we're going to get really excited about and that is really going to allow us to get to know who you are as a person and what type of voice you're going to represent on our campus for 4 years. And those are the essays that we get really excited about, where we would say, oh, you know, we felt okay about this student, but did you read their essay? Like, we just can totally see this student on our campus for the next 4 years. And that's something that's super compelling for us. I like to give an example of one of the best essays I've ever read, because I think it is a really good example about how you can really write about anything. as long as you write about it in a way that's unique to you and in a way that shows passion for yourself. A lot of times people think that they have to have this sort of big thing happen to them that they had to overcome to write about in order to have a powerful college essay, but that's really not the case. The best essay that I ever read was an essay about salsa, black bean salsa specifically. So the student wrote their essay about how their favorite food in the world, and everyone in their family's favorite food, was black bean salsa from Trader Joe's. But the problem was the nearest Trader Joe's was 3 hours from this kid's house. And so the student wrote about how once a month he would make a pilgrimage to Trader Joe's and buy cases of black bean salsa and bring it home, and it would last them like a month. They went through a lot of salsa, obviously, but it would last them about a month, and then the next month they'd go back and they'd buy more cases to last them. And then one day he showed up at Trader Joe's after the 3-hour drive there, and he didn't see any black bean salsa. And he asked one of the clerks, do you know where the black bean salsa is? And the clerk just said, oh yeah, we don't carry that anymore. And the student was flabbergasted, and he did not know what to do. His head was spinning. And he said, like, it temporarily, or they said, no, it's discontinued. We don't make that anymore. And the student, the best line of the essay was, he said, I never really made many enemies in life, but I met my first one today. And his name was Trader Joe, but he spelt it like Traitor, Joe. And then he sort of wrapped up the essay really nicely by saying he really had to, this sort of came at an interesting time in his life because he had also lost a couple extended family members recently, some grandparents, and he was sort of grappling with this idea of loss in his life and learning how to let go. And he said that, you know, black bean salsa, he was someone that really wasn't able to let go a lot in life and really clung to a lot of things and clung to the past. And his reckoning with black bean salsa really taught him how to let go in life and move on from things. And it was just a really great essay. And if I told you like one of the best college essays I ever read was about salsa, you would probably say like, I don't believe it. But I think that goes to show you that you don't have to have this massive thing happen to you. You can live a pretty normal life and write a really good college essay. That was a long story, but hopefully it was funny.
Yeah, I'd say one of the big things, don't write about your grandparent. And I know you might love them and that kind of thing. I guess we just get so many. One of the best ones I ever read, small high school in Maine, and the student was in the marching band, and she needed to, I can't remember if it was the clarinet to the flute or vice versa, but it was really, you know, coming from her heart. That made a big difference. And one other thing, when you talked about your wife and that kind of thing, I was doing a panel in Connecticut one time, and it was like Wesleyan, I think. And this kid, he would have been accepted, but he took his older brother's essay, who went to that school, and wrote it, and somehow didn't think it would get caught, and it was a deny. So people need to be careful about some of those things.
I'm gonna take a little bit of a different angle and talk about a few practicalities. I mean, I think in general, well, I just want to say, you know, you're 16, 17, there is, from my perspective, I suppose this is from me, there isn't anything that I don't like to read. There isn't anything that I say, oh my God, another one of these. That is not the case. Like, I'll read 100 essays about getting cut from the sports team junior year and then finally getting on and seeing, like, that's totally fine. Like, you're young people, and that may be the biggest thing that happened to you and something that you're really passionate about. Please do not discount your own personal experiences for my behalf, right? Write about what's important to you, whether it's big, small. You know, you could Google and find out what's a great essay to write about, or what shouldn't I write about. I don't believe in those lists. Like, if it's important to you to write about, please write about it. That's what matters to me, because as he said, it's your only option to get your voice into the application. The only way we can hear directly from you. Make sure it's about you. It's okay with me if you talk about grandparents, but I've read many essays where it's about their grandparent, you know, it's not about the student. So make sure you're relating it to who you are, how it's affected you, you know, whatever it may be. But don't discount your life experiences and think they're minor just because it's not on some list that you've seen on Google for the best essay you can write for college. Make sure it's proofread, please. That's really apparent. Make sure, like, I read at least 5 every year that will say, I really want to go to UMass Amherst for this reason. Like, so make sure, and which I get, like, you write one essay and send it out to many different schools. Be aware of where you're sending it. That's important. That totally actually happens many times a year, and we talk about it in the office. So, write in your authentic voice too. Don't try to be funny if you're not funny. Don't try to be like, philosophical if that's not who you are. Just write, because that really does come through. Authenticity is like true. We can tell when you're writing true to who you are. So just be authentic, write about what you want to write about, make sure it's proofread, and make sure it's directed to the correct school.
Yeah, just to echo that, I was an English and marketing major, double major in college, so both communications. So please read it aloud, because sometimes you'll just get a sentence where it's like, where's this going? But yeah, please read it aloud. And just another thing I want to talk about is, I get questions a lot, and I'm sure everyone in this panel has gotten the question a good amount as well, is do I need to write an individualized essay for every school? Like if you're applying to 20 schools, do I need to write 20 essays? There really is no correct answer. If you want to write 20 essays to the 20 different schools, great. If you want to write one good essay that you're really proud of, write one good essay. But also a lot of schools, I know WPI does it, I don't want to speak for anyone else in the panel, but there's another writing section beyond the essay. I'll tell you exactly what it is. Spoiler alert, it's why WPI. And it's exactly that, why do you want to come to WPI? So that one is a lot more personalized to the individual school. So if you're submitting the same essay to WPI as you would to UMass Lowell, to BC, to Dean College, wherever, make sure that why WPI is really spot on too, because that is just as important as the essay, because not only is that a window into who you are as a person, but it's a window into how interested are you in WPI. If you give me one sentence, I kid you not, that I read one last week where it's, why do you want to come to WPI? And the answer was, please, PLZ, let me in. I was like, that shows me that you can't put in the effort to complete an application. So what does that say to you about a student? So put effort into it, put thought into it, that makes sure that when you're answering a question like that, you're talking about the individual school. If it looks like an answer that it could be just copy and pasted, just replace WPI with whatever school you're writing it for. Maybe go a little deeper. Talk about the school's individuality. What specifically about the school? Maybe it's a program you really like. Maybe it's a specific aspect of student life. Maybe you want to go cheer on the Engineers on the football field. Whatever it is, make it specific to that individual school where, like I've read why WPI is talking about how they want to come cheer on our lacrosse team. We don't have a lacrosse team. So make sure it's specific. And in terms of the essay, again, please proofread it. Please make it personal to you. Like everyone on this panel said, you can really talk about what you want to talk about. Just make it individualized to you and talk about yourself. Like this is your opportunity. Like there's no such thing as being too like, oh, I'm talking about myself too much. This is your chance and your space to talk about yourself. Talk about an achievement you're proud of. Talk about something you did that you really want to talk about. Talk about something that makes you who you are today. Pick one story in your life that says, I wouldn't be who I am today without this individual story. That's the best way I always tell students to go about doing it. Mm-hmm.
From a parent perspective, something that you learn along the way from your side of things, or something that maybe goes often overlooked?
Yeah, I can kick it off. For starters, from the parent perspective, I will say two things that I was a first generation college student. Me and my sister went to college very close to each other. My sister was the first one in either side of my family to graduate college. So this is a very new experience for us. Some of this may be, you're like 5th generation college and you know this a little too well at this point. Some of you, this may be the first one in your family to go to college. That to be able to be a parent who is by their side, helping them, supporting them, but also give your student room to grow and find things out for themselves, to challenge themselves, to do things for themselves as well, to kind of find that balance, because we see all the time where we have parents come in where it's like, are you applying or is your student applying? So be the parent that helps their student throughout the process, and Number two, just know that this is a stressful process, especially when you're 17 years old and you haven't even gotten your driver's license yet, to be able to go to a college and to commit yourself to a lot of money for 4 years of a college experience for a major you're not even 100% sure about. It's a very stressful process. And for students, I'd always say, take a deep breath. You can do this, you know. I know it's super cheesy, but everyone says a lot of people have done it before you, so you can do it just the same as you. You're at a very good school here in Hopkinton where you do have a very high percentage of people who are going on to 4- and 2-year universities. So you have friends, rely on your friends, talk to your friends who are seniors, or maybe if you're not that close with one of the seniors, like talk to one of your guidance counselors. They've been through this process quite a bit to be able to rely on them and just rely on your resources that you have available to you, whether that's your parents, your guardians, whoever you live with at home, or your friends. Just talk it out. Like, you don't have to go through this process alone. Like, it's your process, but just kind of talk things out. If you have questions, don't ever be afraid to talk to one of the 4 of us. Reach out to one of our offices and say, hey, I don't understand this, or hey, I have a question about this. What's this program like, or what's this? If you're ever unsure about something, don't just sit on it. You can Google things. You can reach out to us. Come visit us in person. We're all within drivable range, or if you're worried about transportation, a lot of us have virtual options as well, so you can stay home and do it. You can do it right from school. I know I came for a virtual visit here in the fall, and I got to talk to some Hopkinton students, so come talk to us, ask questions, and if you're a parent, don't be afraid to ask questions too, but always encourage your student to be the one to advocate for themselves, because once they're away at college, you can't be calling them, asking them questions about their chemistry class. Your student has to come do that, so find that balance of being able to help them and support them while also encouraging them to do it themselves and be able to stand behind the process themselves.
A lot of great stuff there. A couple things I'd add, I think realizing we are blessed in this region to be surrounded by just incredible higher education at all levels, community college, state universities, UMass's, all the incredible private institutions we have. And I say that to say that you really can't go wrong with any school that you choose. Be open-minded to the school that not only is a right fit for you academically, does it have the programs you're looking for, but don't get caught up in a name. Don't get caught up in something that you want to talk about at a party or something like that. I think where you're going to do best academically is the place that you feel most comfortable, whether that is a small private institution of 400 kids up to UMass Amherst, who has 24,000 students, and it's a city in and of itself. So it's really comes down to finding the right fit for you as a person and how you feel most comfortable. And to that end, visit as many schools as you possibly can and be intentional with your visits. Tours are awesome. They really, they're general looks at the university and what we have to offer. But take advantage of your time when you're on those campuses. Grab a student newspaper, eat lunch in their dining hall. You walk the paths that all the students are walking, see where they congregate. Talk to some students if you have the courage to do that. So taking advantage of the opportunity outside of just the tour and interacting with the community of that school is, I think, one of the most important things that I've learned. I too am a first-gen college student. My college search process was talking to a table. Like I applied to UMass Lowell just because it was close. Like, I had no idea. I had no connection to the university. Both my parents didn't go to college, and nobody did. I had no support help whatsoever. So I really wish I had this experience, as I'm sure we all do. Would like to go back and do it over again, and I'm very happy and thankful I ended up where I did, but it's just by random luck that it happened this way. So be intentional with this search and visit. And please try to have some fun with it. I mean, it's a really exciting thing. Like, when you think about you're embarking upon this incredible adventure, the next step of your life, it is stressful in many different ways. I'm sure there'll be some fights about it and stuff at the family kitchen table. But at the end of the day, this is a really exciting thing. And I see parents and students just so excited when they get their acceptance, or when we have our Accepted Students Day, and they're just so happy about the next step. So try to have some fun with the process. I think that about covers it. I don't know, from my perspective.
Kind of stole my thunder on the visit
Sorry.
piece. No, that's okay. I think what I see, senior year goes by so quickly that if you can start those visits now and in the summer, it's just amazing. Different families have talked to me in the past about, I waited until such and such a time, or somebody got sick, it rained, and that pushes it off for another month or so. That do that, and as was mentioned by my colleagues too, the right school for one person might not be the right for the next. Visit kind of a variety that can help you decide, do I want to be on a campus that's in the city? Do I want a more traditional quote-unquote setting? And also, obviously, your major, things like that you want to take into account.
Yeah, for my advice, I want to push back on this idea of there being one dream school for everyone out there. I think a lot of people, it's easy to go on this process and think that they're my perfect fit school and that's it and the be all end all. And I think for the vast majority of students, that's just not the reality. So I would it's okay to fall in love with a school, maybe even consider applying early decision to a school. But I'd encourage you to allow yourselves to fall in love with multiple schools, because for the same reasons that you love BC or any of the institutions up here, there are a lot of other institutions that check all those same boxes that you could fall in love with for the same reasons. It's really easy, in this day and age with people posting on social media at a really, high performing school like Hopkinton to get caught up in the hype of, trying to match with that dream school. But I just think that, is not the reality of how you can be happy at the end of this process. There are a lot of schools out there you can be happy at. One of my favorite student tour guides at BC always used to tell the story to end his tour that his mom always told him in the college search process that you're just gonna know what school is the best fit for you. It's gonna be like when you first try on your wedding dress and you just know. Right? And the kid said, the problem was I looked good in every wedding dress. Like I loved every school that I went to. I said, I love this school. I could see myself in it. I love this school. I could see myself there. I love this school. And I think that's the best way to be, because it gives you a lot of options and it allows you to be happy at a lot of different places, which you really can. So don't build up this idea of there just being one place that is the place that you can be happy at the end of this process. You have a lot of options out there. So I'd really encourage you to use them.
Thank you all for coming. I just want to put a plug in. On March 25th, we have another session of coffee with the counselors, 8:15 to 9:30, and it's a Friday morning. And the focus is going to be on the nuts and bolts of the college application process. We've been working with your sons and daughters in junior seminar sessions once a month and going through the process with them. But we could bring you up to date so you know what they know. So, what did I say? Oh, 25th is the pre-ACTs. I got so many things going on. March 24th, Friday morning. Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. They're blessed, so take advantage of every school you go to if you're having it.
Yeah,